Hello everybody, my name is James Luggett, and today I'll be discussing the Highlander Engame and why I think it's one of the most poorly edited professional films of all time. In order to figure out why though, we must first look at its production history. After the Highlander TV show ended in 1998, it was followed by a spin-off, Highlander Raven. Endgame was originally supposed to be a crossover between it and the TV series. Unfortunately, due to various behind-the-scenes issues and low ratings, the Raven was cancelled after just one season, and the movie was instead intended to be a crossover between the movie and the TV series, even though the pilot of the TV series already did that. As noted by moviecensorship.com, unfortunately, The Raven was cancelled and nobody really knew what to do with the movie. The movie is more rooted in the series than the movies, and if you only know them or even worse, in the first part 2 is which ignored by anybody anyway, you are completely lost when you realise that there are two McLeods and the other one is the lead character. It also didn't help that the movie went through multiple scripts, as Jim Burns, the actor for Joe Dawson, explained in an interview. In terms of putting the thing together, there were probably 6 scripts that went together before they actually had the shooting script. I didn't see any of these earlier scripts, but they apparently took lots of different directions. One of those scripts was written by Gregory Wyden, the man who conceived of and wrote the first ever draft of Highlander. Unfortunately, his script is currently not available to read, but the movie went through multiple titles, including The Immortals, The Search for Connor, World Without End, before settling on Highlander Endgame. Eventually, the final script was written by Joel Soyson, someone who, as far as I can tell, had no experience with Highlander before and outside of writing the draft of the source, since. And it's quite telling, given all the continuity errors and how unbeginner-friendly the movie is. For example, it never explains who the Watchers are, so if you've never watched the TV series, you're going to be completely lost. With Raiden only being given a characters created by credit. It also didn't help that an early draft by Soyson leaked onto the internet and was given a negative reception, probably hurting box office numbers. It also didn't help that apparently the director was only brought on 5 weeks before filming began with little to no time to prepare. The movie was primarily shot in Romania to save money against the producer's wishes, with additional filming being done in London, Paris, New York, and the Scottish Highlands. It was released on September 1st, 2000 and bombed at the box office, killing the franchise for a few years before the source finished it off completely before the upcoming remake. It also didn't help that the trailer had footage specifically shot for it that completely lied about what was in the movie, because there's no magic like in the trailer. There's also 3 different cuts of this movie: theatrical, producers, and a work print that was included on the Region 1 DVD. And I'm not lying when I say that the work print is the least terribly edited version of this movie, so we're in for a rough time. Annoyingly, there is a director's cut that, as of writing, has yet to see the light of day. When I refer to the theatrical and producer's cuts when comparing them to the work print, I'll refer to them as the official cuts to save time. And I won't talk too much about how horrible the writing is, because Spoonie and Pat already did a great review of it, but I will point it out on a few occasions. The official cuts get off to a dreadful start with a really uninspired opening credit sequence after a quick narration from Connor, which is fine. We open up in New York 10 years ago. Since the movie was released in 2000, this scene would take place in 1990, which doesn't make any sense because this is the last time Duncan sees Connor until the present day events of Endgame, completely ignoring the fact that the pilot episode of the TV series, which is the only episode Connor ever appeared in, took place in 1992. I'm counting this as bad editing because simply having some on-screen text say it took place in like 1993 or something would have solved the issue. I've seen various sources indicating that this takes place in 1994 and the present day scenes in 2004. I don't know where they're getting the info from though, because it's definitely not from the film. We also have a few bits in the producer's cut where Duncan talks and it clearly isn't his actor Adrian Paul's voice.
You sure you're gonna be alright, Connor?
Did Adrian Paul refuse to do ADR for the producer's cut? Or did they decide they didn't want to spend the money to get him to do any? Judging about Clancy Brown's comments about the first movie, probably the latter. There's also the issue that this scene is completely absent in the theatrical cut. This means that the audience doesn't get a proper introduction to Duncan because his first scene is him meditating in his pajamas. It also makes a line from Duncan later on make no sense.
I was with him that day Rachel was killed.
Anyway, after the building blows up, we cut to Connor in the sanctuary with a lame voiceover and music that sounds like it comes from a travel advert. as we go to a flashback in 1555, where somehow men from Connor's village find him and tell him that they're going to burn his mother. Timeline-wise, this makes absolutely no sense. Why would they wait so many years after Connor was banished to kill his mother? Connor was made immortal in 1536. Why wait 19 years to kill his mother? I'm gonna count this as bad editing because an easy fix would have been to set it between 1536 and 1541, which is when Ramirez found Connor. And they could have had ADR of one of the men going, "Your mother went into hiding, but we found her." And yes, I know it was established in the TV series that all immortals were foundlings, so they couldn't have birth parents, but let's not get into that now. After the flashback ends, we come back to the sanctuary. Before we continue, let's look at the work print because the structure is completely different. After a simplified opening title, which makes sense because this is an in-progress cut, we open up with the flashback and ends at Kel's moves, foreshadowing his immortality. We then cut to the New York flashback, while it still has some obviously not Adrian Paul ADR, I can forgive it because in this cut it's an in-progress cut, so everything isn't finalized yet, like the effect. We also have a small scene where Connor delivers a Christmas tree to the orphanage, and it's established that he's delivered a Christmas tree there every year for over a century. It's fine, it only comes up one more time at the end of this cut, so the deletion doesn't hurt it much. We then cut back to the present day sanctuary without any lame voiceovers this time. I think the work print structure works better as it doesn't have a lame voiceover, and I can't be the only one who thinks it's stupid that Connor is supposed to feel bad about killing the guy who killed his mother, but I digress. We then go to the Sanctuary Massacre. The theatrical is less action, which is dumb because why get Donnie Yen if you're barely going to use him? Anyway, in the work print, Kel speaks to a Watcher who's watching over the immortals in their comas. In the official cuts, the Watcher is removed and Kel speaks the dialogue when he's walking, even when his mouth isn't moving.
What you need to understand is that I don't care about the game.
We then get one of the most infamous changes made in the producer's cut. In the work print and theatrical cut, the sanctuary is on holy ground. Highlander fans are probably going, wait a minute, Kel kills immortals on holy ground and there's no consequences? Yep, despite the fact that the series established that there were consequences for killing on holy ground.
You know, in all our records, there's only one mention of an immortal killing on holy ground.
Yeah?
Well, it's never been confirmed. It's more of a legend. About two guys going at it in a temple in Italy.
Yeah, and?
It was in Pompeii, 79 AD.
To fix this, the producer's cut removed Mythos' line that the sanctuary was on holy ground by using a different take. This still doesn't work though, because the sanctuary is still obviously on holy ground. There's monks and crosses and stuff, it's honestly so pitiful. Besides, could he just have had Kel and his gang transport the immortals in the comas off holy ground and kill them then? If you're saying this is badly written, nothing short of putting footage and ADR of a natural disaster occurring because of this can fix the terrible writing, well done, you are smarter than the people who made this movie. We then see Duncan meditating in his pajamas and somehow senses the massacre. This isn't the last time in the official cuts this happens, and it's the only time you can blame it on bad writing. Anyway, we then get an important scene that wasn't in the theatrical cut. Duncan is walking to see Mythos when he gets a call on the payphone. A female voice tells him to fear the worst and hangs up, and we see Duncan being stalked by Matthew, the Watcher in charge of the sanctuary, and basically the secondary villain of the movie, even if he's barely in any cut. This scene establishes that they are following Duncan, establishing how they are able to get to him and kidnap him so quickly later on. Without this scene, it feels abrupt. Duncan visits Mythos, and aside from the holy ground line I already explained, it's also stated here that Mythos and Connor knew each other, something that was never established in the TV show. Did nobody who worked on this movie watch the TV show? Anyway, after the scene with Mythos, Duncan travels to New York, and we get the 1712 flashback here in the official cuts. Problem. Why is it here? There's nothing to motivate Duncan about it, and I know we're seeing it from his perspective because of the transition shots here. I also don't like how cut down the sequence is. In the work print, it's a fun sequence as Connor and Duncan banter as they fight the highwaymen. Really shows the kind of movie Endgame could have been. Instead, the official cuts remove the sense of fun and heavily cuts things up for, I guess, pacing. I also much prefer the placement of this scene in the work print, but that's for later. Duncan then enters Connor's lot, which is still here despite being abandoned for a decade and logically should have been redeveloped. If nothing else, it's a much more accurate recreation than the one in Highlander 3. Anyway, we then get the flashback to 1631 where Connor is training Duncan. I've never really liked this sequence because it has Connor teach Duncan a super move that can't be defeated, which is complete bullshit. Put on the side that this move was never seen or mentioned in the TV series, and I know this because I've watched all 119 episodes. Every move in combat can be countered. There's also the small issue that the opponent has a free hand, so what's to stop him from just punching you? The official cuts also heavily cut up this scene to avoid the man flirting with Duncan. Were the producers homophobic or something? We then cut back to the present where we see Kate, or as she's now known as Faith. I personally prefer the work print version of the scene because there's more build up than in the official cuts, and it's here we get a major continuity error.
Or wife.
The series firmly established Duncan was never married and will never be married.
Saw it in your palm.
What are you doing?
You will have hundreds of women, but you will never marry. Not me, not anyone.
So, never been married before, have you, Mac?
No.
And this movie completely ignores that. Why not just have Faith be an angry ex-girlfriend or something? There was no need to break canon like this. We then get to meet Kel's gang, and I much prefer the work print version because they'll get a mini introduction and gives them at least some character. Something they sorely lack in any cut of the movie, and if I'm being completely honest. For some reason, the producer's cut keeps Bob's mini intro but not any of the others. The following fight scene is also heavily cut down in the producer's cut and is much longer and more coherent in the work print. Won't be the last time I'm saying that either. We also get a line that's oddly dubbed because it doesn't match the previous voice for the character, despite the fact it's a variation of what is said in the work print.
Let my man J.K. deal with him. Let my man J.K. deal with him.
Also, in the fight, Carlos says this.
Told you I was gonna cut you.
Even though in the official cuts, the setup was cut, meaning it's only present in the work print.
Don't cut it. Don't must on my act. Let me cut it.
Yes, it's an obvious voice double, but as I've established, since when has that stopped any cut of this movie? Also, Jin K's introduction also has more build up in the work print, whereas in the official cut it's a bit more abrupt, as you can see by the examples on screen. They also give Donnie Yen so little screen time, and it's just baffling. Honestly, he should play the main villain, but that version of the movie never existed, and never will unless someone makes a crappy AI movie with the idea, but I digress. The fight scene between Duncan and Jin K is a little longer in the work print than the official cuts, but at least not heavily cut down like the official cuts. Kel's introduction is also slightly longer, but at least they should have kept in the shot of Carlos raising his gun to shoot Duncan. In the official cut, we just get this lazy jump cut where one moment Carlos is casually standing up, then he's firing off his gun. Very lazy editing. After Carlos' death and quickening, we then get the scene between Matthew and Duncan, and it's so infuriating because the work print actually explains why Kel is so powerful.
He surrounded himself by immortals, loyal only to him. And every head that is taken in battle is reserved for him alone. Each quickening, hundreds upon hundreds are taken by just one man.
But in the official cuts, it's skipped over, which is frustrating because it makes loads of characters feel Kel for no obvious reason. There is an explanation later on, but it's stupid. Anyway, Duncan gets knocked unconscious and he remembers when he and Connor met, and it's so short! This is something we never got to see in the show because of Lambert's salary demands, and this is it! Joe and Mythos come and save Duncan, where the bit they give Duncan back his sword, not in theatrical cuts, there's no explanation how he got his sword back. We thought they show him a torture database that's full of kill counts, and I have major issues with it. First off, kill counts in Highlander have never been a big deal before, so why start now? Secondly, I know there was a ridiculous amount of immortals in the TV series, but this list indicates there's an absurd amount. Are you telling me that nobody in the modern world noticed an increased amount of beheadings in the last decade in universe or so? And thirdly, so what if Kel's killed loads of immortals? Duncan took on the immortals over double his age in the TV series and defeated them. And what about Richie? He was a newbie immortal and he defeated immortals hundreds of years old. Just because an immortal's taken loads of quickening doesn't make them more powerful. This isn't a video game. What makes Kel so special anyway? The movie tries to portray Kel as this massive supervillain and fails miserably. He spends most of his screen time spouting terrible dialogue and he only has 2 fight scenes. And even with Joan being the best villain ever, Bruce Payne's seemingly chewy performance doesn't help. Maybe if he'd been directed, give some more subtle, it might have been more tolerable, but as it is, he's just insufferable. I'm technically counting this as bad editing because they could have given characters a more realistic kill count since it's only shown on a computer screen and not said in dialogue. Also, this kill count indicates Duncan has killed almost as many immortal in 6 years than the previous few centuries. Nonsensical! Anyway, Duncan decides he wants to see Connor's body and say goodbye to Mephiles because he doesn't appear for the rest of the movie. And if you're watching the theatrical cut, then Joe too. He appears in one more scene in the undercut anyway, but that's for later. We then get the graveyard scene where Connor somehow knows to be there, as well as Kel and Faith. Terrible writing much. Also, in the work print, Kel brags he killed Brenda. What is it with the sequels and kill of Brenda? Haven't all 3 sequels Connor is in. Also in the work print, there's a short scene of a French woman falling off a horse. Was this supposed to be a Highlander 3 reference? Were they seriously going to try and tie it into the rest of the franchise? No wonder it was edited out. Also, Kel claims that he's going to make Connor suffer forever for killing his father. If so, he's really bad at it, because where has he been for the past few hundred years? Yeah, he killed Rachel, but only after she and Connor had known each other for decades. He didn't kill Heather, he didn't kill Ramirez. And why did he go after Duncan before now? Duncan being killed would have broken Connor beyond despair, yet Kel never does. Honestly, it's just pathetic. If the movie had shown Kel was completely delusional, then it could have worked, but no, it's actually supposed to take him seriously. He then fights Connor, which isn't a fair fight because Connor's been in a coma for a decade, so of course he loses. Anyway, we then get the flashback to Duncan and Faith's wedding and the scene between Connor and Duncan discussing Faith being a pre-immortal and how they can only become immortal by the shock of a violent death. Yes, this movie gets lots of continuity and lore wrong, and yet somehow the one piece of lore the Raven contributed somehow made it in. What the fuck? Anyway, Duncan visits Faith, and while I personally prefer the work print version since it's longer and more fleshed out, it works either way. Although Faith hating Duncan for taking away her ability to have children doesn't work, because the series established that pre-immortals can't have children either, but oh well.
Immortals can't have children.
Exactly, Mac. This happened before I became an immortal.
That's not the way it works.
Maybe I'm the first.
We then get a scene in the producer's cut where Kel talks about how he met Faith and how she'll never love him because her heart will always belong to Duncan. It's a fine scene establishing character, so naturally it's only in the producer's cut. This scene also shows the actress playing Faith, Lisa Babuska, isn't good at portraying anger. I don't know if she was just directed poorly or she just wasn't very good at acting. Her short acting career might explain that, but still. And then she goes to Duncan's hotel room, somehow knows where he's staying, and proceeds to sleep with him. Now, those of you who have functioning brain cells are probably wondering right now, why would Faith do this? Well, to answer that, we need to look at the work print. In the work print after the fashion show scene, we get a scene where Faith goes home and it's established that it's a temple under construction. It's actually a decent scene. Kel is tolerable because Bruce Payne is reining his performance for once, and Jacob and Faith talk about the game, the quickening, Kel's motivations, and Kate's and the rest's part in it all. This really would have helped the movie. Afterwards, Faith flashes back to the highway main scene and her reign with Duncan, showing that she's remembering the good times they had together, leading to sleeping with him. While it still doesn't explain how she knows where he is, it's still better than nothing this way. We also see Duncan thinking about a conversation with Connor and Faith being a pre-immortal. Seriously, the structure of the work print just makes so much more logical sense. Oh, and the sex scene in the work print is 2 minutes longer. You're welcome, perverts. Anyway, Faith leaves, and in the producer's cut, we then get an interesting scene between Faith and Jin Kay. Jin Kay points out that there's only a matter of time before any of them won't be used to Kel much longer. Why they felt the need to cut so much of Donnie Yen out of this film, I don't know. It doesn't help that this is edited down from a longer deleted scene where Faith and Jin Kay are talking while two of Kel's gang are jousting on motorcycles behind them. Anyway, we then get 2 completely different series of events, technically 3 counting deleted scenes. The first one is the work print where the scene of Connor forces Duncan to kill him because, oh yeah, they kill one of the best characters of the franchise in such a stupid way because apparently it's the only way to stop Kel. Bullshit. What's to stop them from just teaming up and defeating Kel? Yeah, it's against the rules, but Kel isn't playing by the rules and there's technically nothing enforcing them if you think about it. And why did they give Connor such an awful slicked back haircut? It just makes him look old. Just look at the Beowulf movie Christopher Lambert did the year before. He looks just as young as he did in Highlander 3. Just change the hair and boom, you've got Connor again. But no, they give him a terrible haircut. Meanwhile, it's in the cut with the Last Supper scene where Kel kills his gang for no obvious reason. In this cut, he surprised them, killing them all but Jin K, who decides to go out with honor and takes his own head. Yeah, it looks goofy, but it's not a finished effect. Also, Kel spills faith for some reason.
Leave me.
Meanwhile, in the official cuts, we get the Last Supper scene before Connor and Duncan, and somehow Duncan is able to sense what's happening, just like the Sanctuary Massacre. We're using shots of him from the workpoint of him sensing Connor on the roof. Also, for some baffling reason, the gang just sits there while Kel lops their heads off one by one. What the fuck? Why would they edit this way? It's so nonsensical. Also, in the theatrical cut, Kel kills Faith. In the producer cut, she survived, but they still edit it like Kel killed her, just cut out one shot. It makes no sense at all. Oh, and in the producer's cut, they blurred out a massive advertisement board. Did nobody in location scout going, hey, maybe we shouldn't have a massive advertisement board ruining what's supposed to be the most emotional scene in the movie? But what about option 3? Well, originally, after Duncan kills Connor, Duncan goes to a club and runs into a member of Kel's gang before attaching them to a truck with Connor's sword and sending it through the wall in Kel's temple, which leads to him realizing that Connor's dead and decides to kill his gang to get a power boost before fighting Duncan. Naturally, this is only a deleted scene and not in any of the cuts, although they use some of the scene of Kel playing the harmonica for a pointless scene. Anyway, we then get to the final fight, and fuck me, this is a clusterfuck. So all versions started with Duncan and Kel trading terrible dialogue with each other before they start fighting. They fall down and keep fighting, then we get the changes. In the theatrical cut, Kel and Duncan somehow teleport to a completely different area. They then somehow teleport to the catwalk, Duncan falls off, then they teleport outside and Duncan no longer has his jacket. What the hell? In the producer's cut, Duncan's landed on the floor inside. They repeat the section we already saw, and there's a jump cut for some reason. We then get a fight in the chain room before Duncan makes it outside, takes off his jacket, and he goes off to fight Kel. We see Matthew aiming at Duncan, but Joe kills him before he can do that. Originally, this scene was longer as Joe gave Matthew one last chance not to be evil, and it was supposed to take place after the Connor and Duncan scene, but it was moved here, presumably due to lack of transition shots, as the one in the workprint looks rather silly.
Duncan! Looking for me!
In the workprint, we go from this room to the catwalk, then the fight on the ground without the jump cut, then the chain room fight, and outside, much more logical. Also, in all 3 cuts, that's obviously a Paul Duncan's holder and not a sword like he's supposed to. It's rather nonsensical he's able to catch the sword in midair anyway, but whatever. Also, in the official cuts, we get this repeated shots. I don't understand why. I mean, yeah, it's 2 different angles, still repeated footage. Anyway, the workprint doesn't have the awful morphing of the official cuts. Instead of Kel being killed because somebody can't defend against a flip, Duncan just rushed up behind him. Granted, the workprint one is rather rushed, but at least it's more convincing. Anyway, the theatrical cut ends on the grave. The workprint ends with Duncan continuing Connor's tradition with the Christmas tree, and the producer's cut ends with Faith being alive, having been spared by Kel for some reason, going back to being Kate, and getting back together with Duncan despite the fact they haven't addressed any of the major issues between them, complete with another ADR line that's obviously not Adrian Paul.
You can always trust me, Faith.
And that was Highlander Engame. What a shit show. I hope I've done a good job explaining why I don't like this movie and why I think the editing is so appalling. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments and we can have a discussion. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.